Hi, Jessica.
Hello.
Welcome to the audio conferencing center. Please enter a conference ID followed by pound.
Jessica, where do you work? Where do you teach? Or are you a principal, or where are you?
Yeah, I'm the director of advanced learning.
Oh,
So I'm housed at Central Academy, but
okay.
I oversee the Central Academy program, the advanced learning program, and advanced placement program.
I see. Okay.
Yay, team.
All right.
All right, group, we do have a quorum present at 5. Brad was not going to be at this meeting. Kathy is, I think she said she was trying to do 3 or 4 meetings at once. So you're going to bear with me that I'm going to try to run this operation. So just one note for everybody on tonight's agenda. If you looked on the website, it mentioned a discussion of the TCG report. We are not going to have a discussion this evening about the TCG report. So I would entertain a motion to approve today's agenda.
Also move, whatever it is.
All right, the agenda has been moved by Gordon. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Melissa Spencer. If I could have everyone unmute yourselves, and if you're okay with the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. All right, the agenda has been modified to remove TCG item, but otherwise is approved. Secondly, is if you have a chance, if you have not, please look at the, oh, Brad Becker, you are here.
Well, there's Brad, there's
This is
Alan.
my new thing, is showing up 30 seconds late and letting somebody else do the unfun part. So you sound
No, I
great.
wasn't
Like,
sure. No, I didn't think you were at this meeting. So Kathy sent me a message and said, will you run it? And I was like, all right, I'll practice up my parliamentary procedure. All right, so you want me to
I'll give
finish
you some
this?
notes afterwards on how you're
Exactly.
doing. So.
Do you want me to keep going, Brad, or do you want to jump?
Please, yeah.
All right,
please.
so I'll just, all right. So if anybody have any questions or any changes to the June 1st minutes, I'll kind of pause for a second if you haven't had a chance. Otherwise, I will entertain a motion to approve the June 1st, 2022 minutes.
I'll move to approve.
I
Moved
second.
by Jessica, seconded by Lola. All right, let's go ahead. If you are okay with that motion to approve the minutes, please say aye.
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 And any opposed, please say same sign. All right, Alan Goody and John Augustine, we are to you. We've got some updates. I know some hanging items from, I don't know, meetings and meetings and meetings. We get together so frequently that it's from one of those meetings. And so Alan or John, I don't know who's going to take over, but please jump on in. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll start. Can you hear me, Blake? This is Alan.
Yep, you're good, Alan.
Okay, excellent. So Blake, you had a good question. And let me know if this isn't what your question was, but the general idea is with fixed income portfolios, it's really important to keep an eye on what happens to the yield as bonds mature in the portfolio. And that's particularly important when you have a period of time in which interest rates have declined. So the idea is maybe bonds were purchased in the portfolio at in a period of time in which yields were higher. That's great. We got higher yielding bonds in the portfolio. But when you go through a period of a couple of years where rates are declining and we have to replace bonds, what you can see is the yield of the portfolio decline a little bit over time. So interest, another form of interest rate risk, basically. And what we sent, and I don't know, do you have this in front of you? I sent it to Kathy, and I think she was going to send it out to everybody. I put together a small table that shows the cash flow. We call it roll off or maturity by quarter and for the remainder of this year, as well as 2023 and 2024. Does everybody have that in front of them, or should I just share my screen so you can see that?
Yeah, I don't think I have it. If you want to
Okay.
share me a copy, I can always add it later.
Let me see if I can share my screen, and then I can use my cursor to kind of point it out. So I know I'm kind of on the hook here. I'm kind of teaching a little bit to a bunch of people that know a heck of a lot more about teaching than I do, but I'll give it a try here. So this is the email I sent. Let's see here. I can't see you guys now, but okay, I'm back. Can you see this table?
Yes,
Yep.
it looks
You can
good.
see the table. Yeah, I don't know
Okay.
if you can make it a little bigger without losing too much of it, but it's kind of on the left side of the screen, about a quarter.
Yeah. Let's see here. We use the Zoom tool, Blake. About that.
Oh,
That-
yeah.
That's a lot better. That's readable.
Yeah,
Thank
that's
you.
good.
Yeah, we can
Okay.
see the 22, 23, 24, then it kind of cuts off.
Yeah, I'll scroll a little bit.
Yep.
These are just disclaimers. It's just saying that the data comes from us, BTC Capital. It's from our own proprietary system. And this is just based on the current portfolio holdings, specifically all the bonds and the preferred stock. It's almost all bonds. I think 95, 99% of this fixed income preferred allocation is bonds. There's very little preferred stock. So a few disclaimers there. And it's as of last month. It hasn't changed a lot in the last couple of weeks. But the main idea is, all right, what are the cash flows coming from not only maturities of bonds, but interest from bonds? So two different sources. What are the cash flows that are being generated in the first quarter of this year, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, for example, and then the total for this year. And then we do the same exercise for 2023 and 2024. So you can see, just for example, in 2022, we expect in the final 3 quarters of the year for there to be almost 17 million of cash flow generated from maturities and interest. So there's about, Jeff, how much in cash? I know you and I were talking. Jeff Beardsley is with us. He is the head of our fixed income team, and Jeff and his team buy the bonds and keep an eye on all this. And I got this information from Jeff and his team. Jeff, remind me, for example, and give people a little bit of perspective. So per quarter, how much of the cash flow is used for, disbursements to to participants?
Yes, thank you, Alan. About 4.5 million, so about 1.5 million a month is distributed from the plan. And again, this is just the fixing component. It doesn't necessarily include all the equities as well. But we do have, about 4.5 million each quarter for 18 million a year.
Yep. So that 4.5 million, not completely, because we've got cash flow from dividends from the equity allocation, but that 4.5 million, a large part of that is sourced right here from these maturities and interest on the bonds.
Yep.
And you can see this is really illustrative of, on one aspect of bond portfolio management. It's not about just picking good quality bonds. You got to be cognizant of the coupon and the yield that you're getting. Does it make sense relative to the risk you're taking in those bonds? But then also the portfolio, you do what's called ladder it, which means you spread out the maturities in such a way that you don't have large cash flows from maturities or interest coming in lumps. What you want to see is kind of a nice smooth sort of cash flow being produced over time. And just to give you an example, so in the second quarter, it's one of our higher cash flow quarters at 8.2 million, but that slows to 6.7 and then 2.1. And then you can see in the other quarters, it's in the neighborhood of, 2 to 3 million. Here's a high quarter here, fourth quarter 2024 at 5.9. But in general, it's fairly smooth. And then the final point I'll make that also illustrates, good bond portfolio management is that even though yields or interest rates in the market, coupon, which is tied to the coupons you get on bonds, that's declined significantly in the last 3 to 4 years. The yield on the portfolio, really, it's pretty I don't know if I want to say it's bottomed, probably has, but we don't know. But bottom line is at 4.1 currently, we go to 4.2, 4.3. It's consistent through 2023, and then in 2024, it inches up a little bit more. So what you're seeing is I'll call it bottoming, and then it's very steady, and it goes up. This is the yield changing is like a big ship. It's not a motorboat where you can turn it on a dime. It's a big ship. It's an aircraft carrier where, with a few hundred bonds in the portfolio, the yield isn't going to change much. It's going to stay pretty stable. But what this illustrates that may not be apparent, I guess it doesn't illustrate it, and it's probably not apparent, is that the investment team has done a really nice job of making sure that when they bought bonds, if they have been lower in yield, they've been shorter in maturity, so that they mature sooner, and they can replace those bonds sooner with higher yielding bonds, assuming that interest rates go up. And so that leads to a shallower bottoming in the overall yield of the portfolio, and then a recovery or a slight increase in the yield sooner rather than later. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does to me. Alan, how far out do you all have the ability, or where do you feel comfortable? Like you end here at Q4 2024. Would you have the mechanism to provide that report and extend it to 2025, 2026? Or sort of where's the marker where you go, now we're starting to get more into conjecture versus a more accurate sense of where our bonds would yield, but also that was cash flow?
Yeah, the team models this out to, I think it's currently modeled out to 2025 and 2026, and Jeff and I looked at that, and to your point, Blake, it's pretty certain. There's not a lot of conjecture in it. It just gets to the point when you're talking beyond 2.5 to 3 years, it just in terms of what's the value of that information, and what we tend to do is the team itself will focus on, and that's what you're paying the team to do, is focus on that longer period of time as well as the near term. This is more near term in nature, but we could certainly provide that if you want. I just don't know, for decision making purposes or peace of mind, maybe it is helpful for peace of mind, but this stability and general cash flow pattern and the stability of the yield is consistent out to that 2 years beyond this. It actually starts to continue to go. It continues to go up very, very slowly from there too.
Yeah, that was really my question, is that my assumption was that 2025, 2026, I didn't know whether that curve up, is it 4.6? Does it hit to 4.7?
Yeah, I can look at it real quick if you got a minute.
Oh, I think we're here for a little bit.
Let's see if I can. Can you see it's basically a raw data looking sort of Excel. So I'll highlight it so you can see it. So what you can see 2022 and 2023 in yellow. So let's go all the way out to 2000. We'll just do 2027. It's a little hard to read. That's what I've done in green here.
Mm-hmm.
So 2025. Let me do something. So 2025. Green for money. Okay. So 2025 is green right there. 4.4 million of maturities in the first quarter, 2.7, 2.2, and then 3.3. So there's some consistency there. You don't see like 10 million one quarter and 2 million the next. You see some smoothness. And then you see we go from 2023, come out of 2023 at 4.4 on yield, and we're in 4.5 territory pretty quickly, and it inches up, as you can see, 4.51, 4.52, 4.53, 4.52, and then 4.56. So we're really getting into the details here, but you can see that 4.5 trend holding and rising steadily. Then we get into 2026, we'll do some more green. 3.5, 4.8, 5.3, 6.4. So again, all these maturity levels, they're in the same neighborhood. And then we go for yield, we go from 5.6, we continue with 5.6, 5.6, 5.7, 5.9. And then 2027, we're really getting out there far now. 5.6, 3.5, 5, and then 2.2. And then we finished 2026 at 4.9, and then now we're into 5.0. So we just crossed the 5% threshold. And then we're at 5.1, then we're at 5.2, then we're still at 5.2. So, we finished 2022 at 4.3. By the time we're at the end of 4.7, we're at 5.2. So it's come up 0.9 basis points. And I'll let Jeff comment on this, but well, first of all, is that helpful?
Yes. Yeah, I would actually appreciate if that can be sent to Kathy and then shared to us or posted publicly, whatever is the easiest method.
Okay. But that's the thing, the caveat with this, and Jeff can speak to this, caveat with this is that this can change based on the bonds they buy with the maturities. So that's kind of why, putting this in the 2022, or excuse me, 2023 numbers, which is this isn't going to change as much because they're not going to be buying bonds with a 1-year maturity.
Right.
If they, with any investments they make in 2022, probably I should say, there's no absolutes to any of this. Probably they're not going to be buying 1-year bonds or even 2-year bonds. They're not going to be buying here or here and doing anything that really changes these groups of data. Or what they might do is they might find something that's attractive that's a 2-year bond, which is going to change this data, or the 3-year bond, or a 4-year bond. So you can get some material change in here, and that's why we're cautious to say, the team is very careful and very skillful at making sure that they don't degrade these numbers when they make investments. But the investment markets are a pretty dynamic place, and you just don't know what you're going to be able to buy. You kind of know from week to week, but month to month, especially in today's world, there can be a lot of volatility in rates and in what you can buy. And so if there was a prolonged trend change in rates went down for some reason. These numbers here in 2025, whoops, I don't want to do that. 2025 or 26 or 27, these could change a little bit. So just words of caution there. Jeff, do you have anything to add? Try to do my best job on that.
Yeah. Oh, you did a great job. Yeah. So, the reason why the yields do stay up is, as Alan explained, we don't churn your portfolio. Some of these bonds were 30-year bonds or 25-year bonds bought 7 or 8 years ago. Their book yields are still there. So that's what that represents. That's kind of like the real yield. And as long as we don't sell, churn the portfolio, that's a pretty good idea of what the return you're actually returning. So when you buy a bond, you're given a yield, and that yield is if you don't sell that bond between now and the time it matures, that's your return essentially. So you can see a lot of these were bought in the past, and we've opted not to churn the portfolio and sell it and move things around as much, primarily because we know that this yield is an important part of the underlying guarantee of the payments that go out to beneficiaries. So I'll turn it back to Alan.
So Jeff used a real good term there, book yield. That's based on the coupon on the bonds.
Right.
Versus you might be familiar with a term called current yield, which is based on the market value of the bonds. And the market value of bonds goes up. It goes up and down with interest rates and market demand and supply for bonds, among other factors. So this is based on book yield, which is a very common way to look at yields in the investment world when you're talking about a portfolio that holds bonds that are expected to be held to maturity and not bought and sold. So that's an important distinction, and I don't want to confuse anybody, but book yield is what we use, and that's what you're seeing here in this column versus current yield, which you might see if you have a fixed income mutual fund or something in another investment account of yours. They might use current yield as a statistic on the fact sheet or the marketing sheet that they use to market the fund. So this is a little bit different than that. And this, like Jeff said, very important because this reflects very closely what you can expect to get over time from these bonds, which supports the calculations of the benefit and the payments in the plan. Questions or thoughts on that? That's a lot. That's a lot. Unless you do this every day. I think that's all we had for today, unless you have more.
So Alan, would this be it's a fairly consistent yield and kind of trending upward over the long haul? Is that a fair layman's assessment?
Yeah, that's good, Gordon. Yeah, definitely. That's what the data says. That's what the data tells us. That's good. That's a good trend, and that's what you want to see. And it's just been hard to deliver that in the last 5 years. But it's still, there's been a lot of bonds bought over a long period of time in this portfolio, and it's supporting it well. The yield is supported well by that buying over its decades that we've been buying bonds in this portfolio, and so you see the yield here and what it's done, and it's supported well by all that buying.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions for the BTC team?
All right, I will stop sharing.
Yep.
And we'll
All right,
hang on if you have any other questions, but go ahead, with the next, whatever else you got on your agenda.
Yep, perfect. Thank you to the whole team. That was helpful information for me. I think it shows for all of us. We talk a lot about bonds, and certainly for the better part of almost 10 or 15 years, it's been kind of a beat up on our plan. And I think that was well said and fairly easy to understand. That it seems like we finally, please, have hit the bottom, and things are trending. And they're always going to trend up slowly when you're talking about bonds. And so that analogy of the ship was very true to form. And hopefully there's no icebergs out there along the way. Smooth sailing, please, ahead for everyone. Let's move on to our next agenda item. Again, for those of you looking at the agenda, we deleted the TCG discussion. So Kathy, do you have any updates, or does any committee members have any updates on a replacement for we have one community member spot open?
Like I do not have anybody right now in mind. If anybody has any names, please submit them. If anybody has any friends that they think would be a good candidate for this board and a valuable resource for this board, please submit their names, and we'd be happy to talk to them about what the expectations are, what the time commitment is, what type of expertise we're looking for. I would encourage that. Again, I don't have anybody specific.
Any other committee members have any, not that you would need to throw out any names now, but I think, if you could send those to Kathy so that we can kind of make those initial connections to see if we can find a good fit, right fit. And if there's anyone who's just sort of listening in, if you know members of the community, that would be a good fit that can come in. Obviously, the more background someone has on the financial side of things, that benefits us well. All right, on our agenda, we sort of have mashed a couple things together. On the agenda, it officially says sort of the next communication piece. But there's really kind of couple pieces in there that I want to break out. And one is sort of our election procedure. And I have to admit that I'm not really up on this. So I'm hopeful that someone can maybe provide a little background in terms of maybe what have we done in the past? What do we need to do with the election? And I don't know, Kathy, if you've been able to confirm, but I think likely the 3 actives and all 3 retirees are likely up for election. And whether we're wanting to, I mean, I don't even know if we have a choice, but us putting all 6 of those positions up for election. So I don't know if anybody has any background. Our plan document doesn't really provide a lot of clarity other than the timing of it is to occur basically as soon as we get rocking and rolling in the next fiscal year, those meetings into July, August.
To me, it would make sense, and this is my own just thinking out loud. To me, it would make sense to tie it in with our annual meeting that we've now moved to a fall meeting. Just because that's when we have maybe the most presence in our meetings to do an election. But I think the nomination portion needs to occur obviously before that. So if there's any nominations, admittedly in the past, I think it's just kind of been by word of mouth. Hey, if somebody has somebody they want to nominate, let us know. I think maybe given the time commitment, the increased time commitment to the committee, and that maybe we need to do a more concerted effort in that nomination process and at least send that out and send something to the retiree group and send something to the active group so they can nominate individuals.
Do we, Kathy, should we sort of set a date now for nominations just to sort of hold ourselves accountable to that? I don't have my, have we set an annual meeting date? I don't think we've done that either.
I don't think we have. I think last year, wasn't it in September or October, maybe?
I mean, should we tentatively set those dates?
I think that would be a good idea. I'm
my-
trying to look on my calendar, but I can talk at the same time, and I'm not multitasking very well.
My thought is, and then these, I'm just throwing these out here, is, you know, do we leave the nomination window open until, you know, like on August 26th, and then try to have the annual meeting a couple weeks after that? That way it gives people, I do think one of the questions I know sometimes, or maybe it's even all the time, it's just sort of like there's a nomination, your name is on there, but do we feel like there needs to be some sort of a bio, why are you doing this, an optional meeting where members could log in and anybody who's running for any of those positions can, you know, give a short, quick speech and answer questions. I just wonder how we create a process where members know sort of who's on the ballot and who's asking and what are their goals, what are they trying or want to achieve, and sort of have an ability to interact, maybe more than has happened in the past. And maybe that's too much. Doug?
Blake, I was just going to say, thinking of things outside of district and association life, a way that we do our credit union is there's the nomination period, but then at the annual meeting, the Q&A and kind of the stump speech is a part of that to give some meat to the agenda. And then that kind of kicks off the voting window. So, I mean, there's ways to kind of do it. You could do it that way. You could do nominations through the annual meeting. I mean, it's just kind of the will of the board, but I think how it's worked for our credit union is nice to have that nominations piece, but have it done before the annual meeting and then use that for the stump speech and questions and introductions of the candidates.
Yeah, and I think as long as the annual meeting also is recorded, then it increases the access even more, so that you wouldn't necessarily, and I'm making an assumption that the annual meeting would be in a location, but it wouldn't have to be.
I was going to say our credit union actually decided to stick with virtual meetings because they're better attended and they're recorded. So no, I think there's pros to both, and especially all the great work that Rosie's done with our documenting of these meetings makes it easier as well.
I like that idea. And then I'm wondering if we would, I'm just throwing this out there. I'm trying to think of ways to get the votes in, because, you know, we've historically sent out a postcard to retirees to vote in return, and our return rate has been dismal. So I'm wondering if there's a.
So that's how I got on, huh?
No, Gordon.
Sorry.
There was a whole bunch for you.
Yeah, I'm sure there was, yes.
But the number of responses we get is just very low. And I think it's, you know, part of it's they don't necessarily read it when it comes through. They see a postcard and throw it away, or they fill it out and don't send it back. And because a lot of our retirees are not participating online, there isn't a good voting mechanism. With our active staff, it's pretty easy. You know, we can send out a poll and let them vote, and then we can automatically get the results, and we don't have to tabulate results. But if anybody has ideas of how to better reach that retiree,
let me ask our folks who represent the retireds. Do you guys use QR codes? Because if you had a QR code, you point at your phone, like when you go to a restaurant and you, instead of getting a paper menu, you use the QR code and it brings it up on your phone. You know what I'm talking about?
You're way above me on that one.
Okay, so maybe that won't work, but yeah, maybe Lola, you got something to say?
That's all. And I know it's there, and I know people, I know it's easy once you get the hang of it. I mean, it's just a real simple thing, but I don't know if many of us have that.
You have a smartphone. Most people have a smartphone that can take pictures. All you do is hold your camera up on your phone, and when you put the camera in the viewfinder, it brings up the website and takes you right there so you can vote right away. I mean, it makes it really simple. And I'm noticing that a lot of restaurants in the area are going to QR codes for their menus instead of paper menus. So I don't know how familiar, but that could be one way, because you can send a postcard with a QR code on it right to the link. And then they don't have to know a website address. They don't have to type it in and get it exactly right. You just take a picture with your phone and you're there. Is that? But if they don't understand what a QR code is or how it works, it might be baffling.
Very honestly, I think that's probably going to be pretty limited with retirees. I'm just thinking, and I hope I'm wrong, but.
Well, I mean, do we have the mechanism to kind of do three? One would be vote in person at the meeting. Two, I still think we need to send a traditional postcard kind of a ballot, because in fairness, that's what we've done for decades. And three, I do like the idea, Jessica. I mean, we could throw the QR code on the postcard, and if someone goes, hey, let's try that out, no real loss there. It sort of gives us a double communication there. I think we just have to think about, just on the receipt side of it, that whenever someone scans the QR code, that we have a way to, you know, have the person put in their name and vote, and then not also turn in the postcard. I mean, not that I'm too worried about people double voting, but that could be an issue. Gordon, sorry, I cut you off.
No, that's fine then, Blake. I've been out of it an awful long time, and I feel like when you mentioned there, the QR code might work better for more recent retirees, which maybe have more at stake than someone that's been around a long time. Just a thought, and I don't mean to manipulate the vote or anything along that line, but maybe more recent retirees are a little more up on things than some of us.
Well, and I would say, Blake, Jessica, great idea. Put the QR code on the postcard, but I would even put the website on there so they could do the picture, they could go online, or they could come in person, and, you know, we have a checklist of the people there, and because the QR code as well as online is going to require your name to vote. So I think there's the voter security there. But yeah, I think postcard, yes. QR code, yes. Website, on the postcard, yes. And we've done a great job. I would have never thought of that, Jessica. That's a great idea, because a lot of smartphones, even of our retirees. Well, I'm going to give you way more credit. You're probably better with technology than I am, my friend.
Thanks to my grandchildren and children, yeah.
Yeah.
They can help you vote.
Kathy, can I ask you to kind of peek at your calendar? When are you thinking for the annual meeting in terms of you're going to know where you're kind of a critical piece in that whole meeting? We got to have you there, and then work our way backwards to figure out, how much time do we need to give that nomination process?
Last year I looked, it was October 20th was last year's date. And I think October was good because it was before we lost a lot of our retirees to going south for the winter, but it allowed us time to get the reports back from year end and the actuary reports and all of those things, which I would say probably, I would think would be like a September 30 deadline-ish. So I don't want to push it. I don't want to do it too early, so we don't have good information to talk about, because otherwise it just becomes more of a meet and greet than it becomes an actual business meeting. So I would want to target maybe October, early to mid-October.
So like October
for that
18th.
annual meeting. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the earlier in October is the better.
Do you think even earlier than the 19th, Lola? Do we October 12, October 5? And I just look at Wednesdays because I know it seemed like Wednesdays were often used as
So,
the date.
just from the people I know that are snowbirds, I know that the later we get into October, and especially it's determined on the weather, they leave. But we should be safe by at least the second week, if we could, early part of the third week, possibly. That's just my thinking. I could be wrong.
What are your thoughts, Lola, on in-person versus an online meeting?
I like the thought of it, but I don't know.
And my thought is actually trying to do
Hybrid.
both.
Yeah. I was gonna say if we can do a hybrid, just similar to how we do some of the board meetings.
Yeah, it's worth a try. If we're recording it, we have a Zoom or a team, and it's going to be on YouTube. I think we have both. But if we're the only ones that
I
show
like
up,
the offering. I like that offering of the virtual option for people. I do like the in-person, but because we have so many retirees that aren't local, I like that ability for them to be able to log on and feel like they're being an actual part of the meeting and not just get a summary afterwards. I'd like that they can be present for a live meeting, although it's virtual.
All right, so I'm going to throw out an option in case. How about Wednesday, October 12th at 4:15?
I was just going to ask Kathy, when did we get our end of year stuff? And did that give us enough time last year? I guess I hear you, Blake, and I think the 12th would work, but is that enough turnaround time, Kathy?
Is anybody from BTC still on here? When would we get the end of September stuff? We wouldn't get until like the second week in October. Would that be correct, John?
Yeah, that's good. That's a good approximation. Probably by the second week, we could have that information. Would you agree with that, Alan?
You're on mute, my friend.
Alan.
Yeah, by the end of the second week, we probably have a shot at it. The end of the first week, that's probably not possible.
So you'd want to
So
do the
like
19th.
maybe we need to the 19th. Yeah.
Yeah, the 19th should be safe.
Yes.
Kathy and Rosie, can I kind of put the two of you on the spot to sort of identify what's the best location to host that meeting? I mean, I don't know if it really matters, but if we're going to do it on a technology side, I know some spots are just better and more user friendly than others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say the board meeting just at Central Campus. Just because we had it rewired, and so it should work.
So if everyone will put in October 19th at 4:15 at Central as sort of our,
We will have to make sure that that facility is available at that time.
Yeah, I can check into that.
Jessica, can't you pull some strings down there?
Central Campus? That's next door.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I don't have control over that facility.
Crosswalk over. So then I go backwards and I think about, you know, the nomination window is, you know, is 3 weeks prior, because well, we probably need even more than that, because my thought process is that we're sending this postcard out that has the annual meeting information on it, and it has these abilities to vote. And so we would need to be able to secure names, put them on those postcards so that people know it, you know, and I don't know if we're actually using, I suppose the card could also be the ballot. And so Kathy, what do we need? 5 weeks, 6 weeks?
I'm trying to think that through, Blake, of how much time is plenty of time for them to plan to attend, but not too much time that they lose that voting. You know, there's a fine line.
Yep.
It's kind of like, you know, the save the date for the weddings. How early do you send it so it's in the right time frame?
My thought is, I'm thinking September 15th.
Yeah, it seems to me that the postcard is not going to be able to pick up nominations. It's only going to be able to tell people who has been nominated. And if you're going to have it as the ballot, so these are the nominees, and this is when we're going to have our annual meeting. So please come to meet the nominees so you can make an informed decision. If we're going to do that, then that means we need the nominees before we send out the postcard, which means we need to back it up. And by the time the school starts, we need to have our slated nominees done, which means in July or early August, we need to, you know, call for nominees so that people can nominate and make sure that everyone who's nominated is willing to serve, so that they understand this is the process. You're going to be nominated, and then you have to make a presentation at the annual meeting, and then we'll send out the information in September, late September. Go ahead, Lola.
Are we saying that we're not going to do what we used to do, that we send out the card, letting them know it's a time to be electing these people, these positions are available on the retired and the active list, and then so nominate, you know, we ask for nominations, then they're returned, and I imagine, Kathy, it's very sparse what you get back if nominations, and then based on that information, we were then sent out the nomination, the card with the candidates running, and we voted. I really think I thought we were saying that we would include the postcard for voting. I'm afraid if we leave that out, we're going to I just hate to see that go myself, for those people who are very used to it.
Well, how about this idea? How about this idea? What if in September is when we ask for nominations and we don't actually do the voting, we don't kick that off until the annual meeting. So that way people will have to, at the annual meeting, they'll either get the postcard, they can do it in person, or we can send out the link for anybody who's watching virtually, or post it as a link on the YouTube channel for anyone who's watching that way. And we could also then send a paper ballot. We can have those prepared and send them out with a reminder, the meeting is tonight. So we send out another postcard with a reminder, and these are the candidates that they could use as a home ballot. So that way you got it all covered, but voting won't actually start until on or around the annual meeting. That way people will have an opportunity to hear from the candidates before they cast their votes. Because if you send out the ballot in September, a lot of people will cast their votes and be done. And what's the point of having any kind of commentary at the annual meeting? The other thing is that it gives us time after school's in session for people to nominate others. A lot of people go on vacation in the summers and they check out for a little while. They're not going to be checking their email. They're not going to be doing that kind of stuff. They may not realize that this nomination process is underway. And so if we hold off until, you know, September 15th or whatever date Blake thinks is good, to say you have to have your nominations by then that gives you time to get nominations done. And everyone's back in session. Everybody's kind of got their ramped up their brains again for working. And so that way you have that and you can send out your announcement of the annual meeting, but then save the ballot for the annual meeting. That's my thought.
Kathy, your thoughts?
I'm good with that. I agree with Jessica. It's kind of pointless to send out a ballot to vote before they've heard from the candidate. Then the poor candidate's up there talking and it's not useful. So we can provide ballots at annual meeting if you've already voted. Maybe we have you, I don't know, check your name off, or we check your name off once we get the votes in. So then we don't send you a paper ballot. And those that we haven't received a ballot from, then we send a paper ballot to the retirees and the inactive actives, and we send an email version to the actives.
And the deadline would likely be like a week out, within a week after? Well, we can worry about that later. That's.
Yeah, it'll take a little bit of time to get those all sent out. You know, or we just send them the same day as annual meeting or the same week as annual meeting and tell them if they've already voted, ignore their paper ballot. And that way they get there soon. And, you know, for the few people who have voted during those, it's not like we've expended huge amounts of money or time to send those out. So we can walk through that process. I just want to make sure that everybody gets an ample opportunity to vote.
Yeah, and you know, Kathy, I liked your idea about if we sent out the link at the meeting and also provided paper ballots for those that are in person at the meeting, they can vote right there and have it done. And then we know who hasn't done it. We can just check off that list and only have to send the ballots to those that didn't, you know, vote. Yeah, and then that saves the cost of all that. All we have to do is set up our system so that we can easily check who we need to send them to and then print those labels. We already have the ballots pre-prepared because they had to have them for the paper ballots in person at the meeting. So all we have to do is put a label on the back side and drop it in the mail. So that would be pretty quick. And we say, okay, we're going to give you 2 weeks so that there's time to mail, time to fill it out, and time to send it back. And if postage is paid on that postcard, hey.
Yeah, so I just want to kind of make sure I'm clear on also the sort of the first postcard that goes out is the postcard announcement about the annual meeting, like when and where it will be, and also that we are taking nominations for the 3 spots, the 3 and 3 spots, excuse me, the 6. And so that goes out mid-September. You know, that gives kind of, you know, a 5-week. And then do we make the nomination? Do we kind of close the nomination window October 7th? That's a Friday. That gives, you know, a time to kind of create those ballots and get that piece together. I like that idea of people who can vote. We can eliminate the advisory board current members. You know, we can help with that process. Maybe literally right after the annual meeting, go through and stick some sticker labels on there and hopefully get them out in the mail. And I 2 weeks return date would make sense. So in a sense, we would kind of call the election by, call it, wow, we could almost, oh, I just say we could wait until November 8th, but like November 2nd, November 3rd. So
Like, would we want
out,
to,
yeah, go ahead.
When we open it up for nominations, I don't, I can't remember exactly how it's worded in the plan document. I'll need to go back and read. Historically, we've had retirees nominate retirees, actives nominate actives. But who nominates the citizen group? And why can't an active nominate a retiree? So can we just open it so everybody can make nominations to each category?
I think your recollection of the plan document is the same as mine, and I also believe it does not. I think it defines our committee, and the school board's responsibility is to nominate the community representatives. Don't quote me on that, but I believe that's.
Okay.
And because
yeah, I was just wondering if that,
I'll
because
see
that
if I
way we
can't
might
find
get
it.
more. Because,
Right.
you know, Brad, who are you going to nominate? Can you nominate some people for me?
I nominate Brad.
I could probably track down some actuaries around here that are looking for opportunities, but I don't know if you want any more of us. Do you have any concerns about, and I'm just trying to think about like good corporate governance here, not corporate, whatever we're doing here. Any concerns about like as retirees get to be more and more of this block that you have the opportunity to have a retiree nominate a active that may not have the actives, or a citizen member who may not have the actives best interests in mind, and if there's an issue like the issue we've been talking about for a while comes up where the actives and retirees aren't aligned or their interests aren't aligned, do you worry about, you know, the retirees just sort of overpowering the actives at some point? I don't think I explained my example very well, but Jessica's nodding like she understands me, so.
I think you did, and I think maybe that's why historically we've had just actives nominate actives and retirees nominate retirees.
And should you just have actives voting on actives and retirees voting on retirees and have it totally be bucketed? I mean,
that's exactly how we've done it in the past, and that's not hard. Two ballots, two links.
Citizens are a tricky issue though, because how do you vote on citizens if you're not there? But maybe that's opened up to the entire pool. But I don't know, or maybe
a citizen who's just appointed. I'll look at that. Let me look at the verbiage because I have not studied it very well. But let me look, because if the citizens are a board, then it might just be a board choice. It might just be an appointed rather than an elected position.
Yeah, or you have like a Senate type model where everybody gets a certain number of votes, like the actives get 3, the retirees get 3. I don't know.
This,
I don't like a Senate.
Let me read. I'll read that section 7.4. So elections of the advisory committee. Section A, the board. So in this case, the board is actually the school board. Shall elect at its first meeting, regular meeting held in July of each year or as soon as thereafter as possible, 3 citizens who do not hold any other public office and or in no way connected with the administration of the employer who serve for 1 year. A vacancy in this position shall be filled by this board at its next regular meeting. So this is now the active member. 1 active participant of the plan shall be elected annually for a term of 3 years according to procedures established by the advisory committee with the approval of the board. A vacancy in any one of these 3 positions shall be filled by appointment. Retired. I'm always amazed like this. In the calendar year 1961 and every 3rd year thereafter prior to 1995, 1 retired participant shall be elected for a term of 3 years by the retired participants according to procedures established by the advisory committee. So it's interesting that for the retired group, retireds only vote for retired. The active group, it doesn't actually clarify that, and the citizen members are to be appointed by the school board. I mean, technically, even those of us active and retired, it still goes to the school board, but that's what our plan document outlines.
You probably got better alignment between active interests and board interests because there's an active relationship there. Retirees are sort of left to fend for themselves a little bit.
It wouldn't be hard to put together a ballot on like Qualtrics or Teams, or not Teams, Forms or whatever, that has branching. So what you say, are you active or retired? And they click the one, and whichever one that clicks, it takes them to that slate to choose from.
I was thinking
it's all in one link.
I was thinking that same thing too, Jessica, that we could, ask people to bring a device and there'd be enough of us that would have a device there too, or even set up, a computer station that would be easy to do. Use the Qualtrics, and anybody who's there, boom, they can be in and out and voted and get some data really quickly for us. I was thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah, put the QR code big on the screen. Everyone hold up your cameras. Take a picture. Now vote.
Is there anything else? So within that agenda item, there was just kind of this communication as a whole. And part of what we talked about is if there's any need for communication to sort of go out sort of right now based on where we are in, I guess, within the TCG process. And I say that because that's what the agenda says. And it seems like to me, much of that is related to actives, and that communication has already gone out. We're not really into phase 2, and that's going to really kind of have a holding pattern. And so I feel like we've got a pretty adequate communication piece here. The only thing I will say and suggest is if there's anything that we can do as a either a committee as a whole or anything that the retired members that we can. Actives have it easy because I literally just send an email because I've got everybody, and so it's a really unfair communication pathway. And so I think the more that we can do to reach out, whether it's through those emails that we have, make a commitment that we can send out an update and help network and connect people. I know that that's been something that I've heard a lot from, not that I've heard it from a lot of people, but from the people that are talking to me that are not actives, whether they are inactive actives or retired, is they have said that there seems to be a lag. And I know we've struggled with that all 3 years I've been here, but for, Melissa, Gordon, Lola, if there's anything that the rest of us can do or anything that this committee as a whole can do to help expand that communication, I'm all ears to that and want to help with that because I know that it has helped the actives a lot in the communication that we've been sending out to help people understand what's going on and to be able to ask questions and really learn about their pension regardless of what goes on here. People are engaging in that conversation, and that's really important, and we want to amplify that as much as we can.
We began collecting as best we could by word of mouth for, I think it was probably 2013, 14. It seems like we were doing a lot of collecting word of mouth that got out, and we added to it. And I think we had about a few more than 200. And then it was kind of inactive for a year or two. And so then we've been, since the TCG involvement, we've been trying to update those people. And again, with word of mouth, please if you know others that are Des Moines Teachers Retirement, please let us know there, let them know, and let's get their email. But, oh dear, am I still there?
You're good. You're still on, Lola.
This is sign in and I'm out there. But and then we've got hassle about we left out people, that kind of stuff, some nasty stuff that came to us. But we have tried really hard to update those people. If we can find out what they're when we get 15 emails sent back to us, then it's a struggle to find out how do we get their email address. And then that if they aren't very careful about how they write their email, it's easy to get that wrong too. But yeah, we really have tried hard for years and years and continue now. And it's word of mouth. And I think it's about 200, a few more than 200 we've got. And that's nowhere near the 800 plus that are retirees. And we feel terrible about it, but we can only do so much, and we depend on everybody else out there. So thanks for listening.
Yeah,
it's a struggle.
I know a lot of the I don't know a lot, but I know many DMTRS retirees. And because my mother is one of those DMTRS retirees, so I, have a connection there. And so she funnels me questions a lot, and I funnel answers right back. So I'm like, get in, let us know where you're at. So, but there's been some real interesting rumors that I've heard go through that group recently. It's very interesting. So I was like, hey, here's how you get the link. Here's how you find the information for yourself. This is a summary of what's going on. So I do know that the desire is out there because people are anxious about, and they had some real interesting escalations of the ideas around TCG in particular.
So I would ask all the actives, if you know a retiree who is not, that are saying things like that to you, and they're not getting information from us, please let us know. We'll add them to the group and we'll send it, we'll include them. We're not leaving anybody out, and we're not doing any more than sharing information we get from these meetings. But there's a lot of rumors and not good stuff out there. We want it to stop. It doesn't help us, and they've got good ideas.
Well, and Lola, the thing is,
Uh-huh.
excuse me, I was gonna say, the thing is that the people that I have talked to about this, I have checked to see if they've got their email in, and they all have said, yeah, I got this in my email, and I'm so confused by it, and they get distressed. So I'm like, watch the video.
Jessica, if it went to Kathy, we can't access it, is my understanding. We can't get that. So we are still hung up with the old reformed email that we retirees have. You understand what I'm saying? That the people who filled out even the few that Kathy mentioned, there weren't many that retirees that sent back their emails. My understanding is we can't get those names. Even if it's 50 or 40 or 120, we can't get those. So we need somehow to get that information also.
I can provide you with that. Right now I don't have very many, but I'm happy to provide you with those retirees who have provided their email addresses, Lola.
Understanding was that we couldn't get them from you. So that would be great. And then we can match that, check with what we have already. And I would imagine very likely most of those you got are ones that we don't have. So I'd appreciate that greatly. But please, any of you out there, actives, if you know a retiree that wants to, ask them, because that's what we did when I was at Panera's or saw a retired teacher in the grocery store. I'd say, hey, are you on the Des Moines Teachers Retirement Plans list for retirees getting information? Well, no, I didn't know it was that. Well, good. And tell your friends and get back to me. Or, that just has to be an effort on all of us as part, if you don't mind.
Lola, I'm going to have Sherry Weatherly connect with you.
Oh, great.
And between the two of you, maybe you can develop a shared document with a list. So we both have them, because you have ones I don't have, and I probably have some that you don't have.
And the person who has the better setup with electronically is Barb. And Barb is the one that that she'll shoot to us. I got these names back. Can you find, what do you know? How can we help each other? So I'll let Barb know she's going to call tonight. We're going to talk. Okay. So between all of us, yeah, that sounds wonderful. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Mind sharing that with me as well. I can also keep a backup of that information on our, site. Okay.
Perfect.
All right, group, this is kind of unusual for us, but we actually don't have a next meeting. And I think at this point, I'm going to suggest, unless if someone thinks otherwise, that we actually not set a next meeting. The plan is that there's going to be kind of some behind the scenes work after what happened with TCG. We want to kind of work and figure out what do we need to put together in terms of maybe a more comprehensive view. And that's going to take us a little bit of time. We've got some legal things that are still hanging, honestly, from years ago. But there's going to be kind of some work sessions, and some of you I haven't reached out to yet. And if I haven't, I will reach out to you just to kind of loop you all in. And so it could be a few weeks before we, call another meeting. But I think, Kathy, unless if you can think of something, I think we kind of get to have a little summertime.
You deserve some summer break, so enjoy, and I'll keep working on this and touch base with those of you who I need to, and we'll get something rolled out here as soon as we can.
All right. Take care, everybody. That's a meeting adjourned 5:03. I was close to 5. Man,
good job. Thank you, Blake, for taking over since I was late today. I appreciate that.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. Take care. Be well.
Yep.
Have a good summer.